Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is Dr. Jan Fortman with Relationship Matters TV. I started thinking, you know what? This is my first time, my first live in 2026. So happy New Year to everyone. It is great to see you. It's great to be above ground. It's just been great to be here. I hope everyone had a beautiful 2025 and we are going to make 2026 better. Even if we had some challenges in 2025. You know what? Uh, what is that movie? The Lion King? It's in the past. The Lion King. It's in the past. And so we are looking forward to a beautiful, wonderful, blessed 2026. Well, I'm doing something new this time. And so now you know I'm Dr. Jan, but I want to give you something. This is what I want to give you. This is Dr. Jan's weekly relationship prescription. Now, what is the label, the big label on that prescription jar, so to speak, is listen actively. You know, I always talk about communication and relationships. So, the dosage. Take 15 minutes daily to listen without interrupting. Because you know what we do. We listen to respond. Sometimes we don't even let the person finish before we start responding. That's the dosage. The instructions, when you are listening without interrupting, you're nodding. You maintain eye contact. Don't start looking all over everywhere. And reflect back to what you heard. You know a good way to do that? Just an example. I had a beautiful New Year's Eve celebration. To reflect back, oh, you had a beautiful New Year's Eve celebration. Mm-hmm. So just reflect back to what you heard. Now, the warning, if you don't follow this prescription, when you skip doses, it may cause misunderstandings and distance between you and that person. So this is your Dr. Jan's weekly relationship prescription. When I see you again next week, I want to know, did you follow the prescription? Okay? All righty. Now, I am going to be a part of, I would say, a summit, and it's women. It's called the Superhero Engine Gatherverse. And I will be on a panel. My panel theme is We Care, We Believe, We Persist. It's free. You can come on either of those days, but I am speaking on the 22nd. So all you have to do is take your phone and go ahead and take that picture of that QR code and you can register. And I hope to see you. There are a lot of just awesome women, other than me, besides me, I should say, who are going to be on several different panels. But when you click on that QR code, you'll see all the different panels and all the different women that are going to be on. So I'm hoping that I will see you there. Well, now, let's get into why we are here. We are here for my guests, for us actually, to have a conversation with this wonderful woman, and we've been trying to get together since September. And I want you to meet her. Her name is Rosemary Olender. But wait a minute. Hold on. I'm sorry. Before we bring Olender, I just got a little note here. Something I'm supposed to. Something I'm supposed to announce. It's the Illinois Commission on Diversity and Human Relations, and they're having their 56th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Remembrance Dinner. It celebrates his birthday and commemorates his death, and asks us to remember to elevate his messages of justice, equality, unity, and peace. And the dinner also advances academic scholarships for deserving Chicago high school seniors, and it also honors community business leaders who are carrying out Dr. King's messages. It is Saturday, January 17th, black tie optional. Reception is at 6, dinner is at 7. And what I will do, let me stop this. This is the website that you can go to, and also this is the address. So if you're watching and you're not just listening, you can go to the website, which is icdhr.org. If you just go there, you don't really /2026 King Dinner. It will tell you all about it. Okay, so I've done what I was supposed to do. Thank you very much for reminding me, people. So let's bring on Rosemary. So I want to tell you a little bit about Rosemary. She's an educator, a consultant, a speaker, and a nonfiction author who blends professional expertise with heartfelt guidance on child development. She has decades of experience supporting families and schools, and she offers compassionate insights on how to navigate the challenges of, I'll say, raising these kids. She has a signature talk, Put Your Wallet Away, and Raise Rich Kids. So we're going to talk all about that. I've taken a whole bunch of time. I want to hurry up and bring in Rosemary. Okay? Hello, Rosemary.
Hi, Janice. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm good.
Great. So let's get into you, Rosemary. And I always say that I am a retired educator, but not really, because you're always an educator.
Right.
But you are an educator.
Yes.
So did you teach, what I want to know, did you teach children?
I taught my first 3 years, I taught first, second, third grade. Then I taught 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. Then I taught high school, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And I've done some college teaching. So I like to change what I'm doing and stay passionate about it. I've been a change agent most of my career. So as soon as a program gets fixed or something is settled, I move on. My superintendent used to call me the fireman. He would send me in to fix the fires that were brewing or what was going on. So yes, I've done a lot of teaching. Started out teaching in a residential school for profoundly deaf children. And my background is communications, speech pathology, and teacher of the deaf. And then I started teaching regular education, and then I became an administrator at the building level, school principal at a junior high, then an elementary, and then I finished my formal teaching career as a director of special education. And so then I went into just doing my consulting and my contract work with school districts around the state of New York until COVID.
You sound like me. It's like I'm listening to you. It's like, what? Wait a minute. I taught little bitties, and then I taught high school, and then I taught upper grade, and then I left in special education. Yes. It takes special, and I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about special education teachers. That's a calling.
Yeah, it is. And I really admired all of my teachers. And, my groove was deaf education and behavioral issues. Um,
Mm,
but I marveled at my teachers who taught multiply disabled kids and all the different strands and autistic children and all of that. I'm also the mother and grandmother of students with disabilities.
oh,
My daughter had a significant reading disability. My grandson was born 4 months early and on the spectrum.
okay.
And so I've been on both sides of the table as a parent, as a grandparent, and then as a teacher, as an administrator who whose job it was to secure the right services for each child because it's so individual.
Yeah, yeah. I taught children with learning disabilities,
Hmm.
and then I taught children with, at that time, they called it BD, behavior disorders.
Right.
And then I was, when they decided that everybody could be in what, I forgot the terminology they used because they changed terminology all the time, but it was, I had a class and I had, but then they called it EMH, children. So severely, they were severe learning disabilities
Right.
and just everything. So, and now my son um, teaches autistic.
Hmm.
I said, why do you want to go in special ed? That's so hard.
It's hard. It's hard.
So, with your personal relationships with children who have who are special, so to speak, is that what made you go into education, and especially special education?
What made me do it was a college guidance counselor who I was in a pre-med program and for the life of me could not pass calculus, which was the gatekeeper course for medical school. So he said, "Well, why do you want to be a doctor?" And I said, "I want to work with children." So he said, "Why don't you become a speech pathologist?" And at that time, I didn't know what it was. I said, "I don't even know what that is." And he explained it. And I said, "Okay, I'll try it." And I loved it. Because at that time, the the discipline of speech pathology was tied to the drama department. In the School of Education, you had to take drama courses and become a good performer, which was perfect. They've
Okay.
split that out now, but talk about needing to know things like eye contact and voice projection and all of those things. It was great, and it helped me in my career. And then, as a teacher of the deaf, you teach all the subjects. So then I had to become knowledgeable about subjects, and the only one I ever said not me was math. I was like, I can do social studies and I can do English and I can teach writing and reading and all that, but I'm not teaching anybody math because I really believe that I am math dyslexic. I really believe that. That wasn't a term when I was in school, but trust me, I flip numbers. I would have killed somebody if I had
Oh,
been a doctor. So it was like, no, we're not doing that. Um, so yeah, I've been a teacher. I've been a teacher since I was myself in elementary school. I can remember taking over projects and saying, "Why don't you let me tell us what we need to do?" I don't know. It was just my
goodness.
personality. What can I tell
Okay.
you?
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, sign language. You had to learn sign language.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I did
Okay.
learn sign language. Yes.
Oh, okay. So I know reading your bio and you talk about your dad
Yes.
and you say he was really a great influence by sharing his wisdom with you.
Correct. You want me to talk a little bit about how that got started? Okay. 34 years ago, 1991, my father was dying, and we were in the hospital, and I was sitting at his bedside, and uh, you know, we knew it was a matter of maybe hours or maybe another day or two. And he took the time and the last breath he had to say to me, I want to apologize to you and your sister for leaving you with nothing. And I'm not speechless very often, but it set me back. And I just looked at him and I said, Dad, what are you talking about? Um, and he said, well, he said, I'm leaving you with no marketable value on the house, with no money in the bank, with a used car. And I said, Dad, first of all, Tony and I, my sister's name was Tony Lynn. Tony and I feel like we won the lottery the day we were born to you and Mom.
Oh,
And I
wow.
said, you need to understand that throughout our lives, you have given us so many gifts that are responsible for us being rich. It's like winning the lottery. And he said, I don't understand. So I took the next half hour or so to give him some examples. I said, well, let me tell you some of the things. So that was in 1991. I was still working. Over the years while I was working, my process was to just jot down ideas and jot down reflections back of how my father presented those gifts to us. Did he model them? Did he talk with us about them? Did he show us examples of it and get us to discuss it? And then COVID came along and I said, well, I might as well put this book together. So I did. And in April of this year, the book was published, and it's called Coffee and Wisdom, A Father's Legacy to Leading a Rich Life. And the reason you see the coffee on the table was because one of the gifts my father gave us was the gift of time and presence,
Okay.
ENCE. And my father, from when I was a toddler, when I was as far back as I can remember, probably 4 or 5, he would say, Ro, come in the kitchen, have a glass of milk and some cookies with me, and we can just talk about our day. And we would do that. My mom was very busy with her mother and father who lived downstairs. My grandparents lived downstairs, and she was caretaking them. So my dad we got into this routine, and every night that lasted till the night before he died.
Oh, wow.
He honestly, when he was sick and he was, he had cancer, he would call me at 8:00 at night. That was our time. And we would chat shorter and shorter because he didn't have the stamina as much, but we would talk. That night in the hospital, before he said that to me, he said to me, Ro, go to the nurse's station, get your coffee, and come back so we can talk. So we did. Now, my sister is 13 and a half years younger than me. I started kindergarten I started college the day she started kindergarten. Yet, so we really grew up in different houses, but with the same man. He did the same thing with her and gave her his time and gave her his presence. So I talked to him about that. Are you there? Did I
I'm
lose?
here.
Okay. I lost the picture. I'm not seeing
Oh,
us.
no.
Okay, now I got it. I got it back.
Okay.
I think it's the internet connection in this condominium complex because it goes off and on. But as long as you can hear me, that's good.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
So anyway, so the book is written, it is structured around 12 different gifts. Each chapter is one gift. And the gifts are things like the gift of love and acceptance, the gift of time and patience, the gift of humor, the gift of trust and honesty, the gift of positive risk-taking, the gift of routines and traditions and rituals, all the things that a child needs to become grounded and secure. And it all evolves around parents doing three, I call it the 3 pillars of intentional parenting.
Okay.
And it's interesting because you have one of them you just talked about. But the first one is parents need to observe constantly. They need to be watching. They need to be watching their toddlers when they're playing and listening. They need to be looking to see what excites them, what scares them, what motivates them, what are they willing to try or not try, and get to know a little bit about their personalities, because they'll learn a lot from that. The second one is to listen actively, because, and that's from when kids are little. I've had parents say, well, when they're 2 and 3 years old. I said, no. From the womb, you start talking to them and you listen to their responses. If they're kicking and you're talking and you're playing music, you need to understand that. But listen actively means you don't look at your phone while you're listening to your kid. You make eye contact. And if they're little, you get down to their level, or you bring them up to your level, but you want the eye contact. The phone has killed that, because people will sit in a room and they're all on their devices and they're chatting, but they're on their devices. So listen actively and observe constantly. The third is to model carefully, because your children will learn a lot from your behavior. So if you're out there being rude and obnoxious, they will be. But if they see you being kind and compassionate and caring, they will be too. And you need to be discussing and talking and conversing about all these things with your kids. In the book, the way each chapter is structured, each one's a gift. And then initially I talk about why that gift is so important to a child's security and well-being. And then I have a bunch of reflections and storytelling about how that gift was given or displayed. And then the third section are some suggestions to parents. The demands on families right now are overwhelming. Society, we're in a hustle culture. So parents are being asked for more time, more money, more resources, more of everything. And yet parents are reporting that they feel like their families are more disjointed. They're not as tight as they would like them to be. So what I'm about is to try and help families and help parents understand the kinds of things that they can do to tighten that up, tighten those connections, make those kids feel more grounded and more secure, and my father was, he did not graduate from high school. At age 16, he got up out of class one time, went down to the recruiting station and joined the Navy, lied to them about his age. He was hell-bent on getting revenge for his brother's death in the war, and he wanted to go fight in the war to avenge his brother. So that's what he did. And he wanted to play his part in the war the way his brother did. He wanted to honor him, and that's what he did. So he wasn't formally educated, but he was one of the best teachers and one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And not just because he was my dad, but because of what he did. And when we would sit at night at that table, he would always say, "How was your day?" And he would say, "What happened? What happened today that excited you? Or what happened today that upset you?" And he wouldn't let me get away with just saying, "Yeah, it was okay." Because he'd say, "What do you mean okay? What could have made it better?" So he was very good at sort of peeling the onion, peeling like an onion, peeling the layers off of the conversation to force me to think critically about what I was saying and to explain myself better. And he would do the same. He'd say, "Let me tell you about my day."
Oh.
And, something happened today that really upset me. And I would say, "Well, what did you do?" And he'd say, "Well, I did this." "Why did you do that?" So we would have this back and forth conversation all the time. And those are the kinds of things that I think mean more, because as I was growing up, I grew up in a town that was very dichotomous. There was a lake and there was a city, small city. And most of us in the city were middle class, lower middle class families. My father owned a muffler shop. First, he owned a gas station, he had a gas station franchise. Then he opened a muffler franchise. My friends, a lot of my friends who I was in classes with, were from the lake crowd. Their parents owned the factories and the steel mill, and they had money. And what I observed throughout my school years, personally, was that there was not a lot of difference between those kids and my friends in terms of their happiness, in terms of their security. Money wasn't the factor. What was the factor, though, was their relationships within the family.
Mm-hmm.
That was what was making the difference. And what I found over the years, even at college, is my friends who didn't have the kind of relationship that I had, or they weren't really tight with their parents or one of their parents, they would come home with me instead of going to their houses for weekends. They'd say, can I come home with you? And they met my dad because one of the things he did was, when I was in college, he would come and see me to take me out to lunch.
Uh-huh.
And as time went on, we never left the dorm. He would come into the room, and then a friend would come in, and another friend. And it wasn't unusual to see 4 or 5 or 6 of my friends sitting in my room talking with my father the way he would talk with me at the kitchen table.
Wow.
He was one of the best communicators, because he would look at you and he would pull stuff out of you, and he would show you that he was interested in you, and he would compliment what he heard, or he would question what he heard. And that's the kind of man he was.
Wow, you were very blessed. I got a comment here from Sandy Barney Ennis when you were talking about modeling your behavior, and she was saying how true, because obnoxious parents produce obnoxious children. They are your reflections.
That's right.
And that's very true. But I want to ask you this. What about their parents who, especially now, that work all day, they come home, they're tired, and they don't have that time, so to speak, to spend with their kids? What can they do?
Okay. Great question, because I think time is the number one enemy of family connectedness right now, especially with the economic situation we've got now. We've got and we've got single parents, we've got grandparents raising their grandchildren, and we've got people working 2, 3 jobs. Time becomes harder. Professional families, they're trying to get ahead. They're trying to do so. Time is big. It's not the amount of time, it's the quality of the time, and it's also the priority of the time. So what I try to help parents do is say, okay, I had a mom. Let me give you some examples. I had a mother one time. She was a lawyer, and she was working very, very hard to get her law degree so she could support the family. She was a single mom. And she said, what do I do? I just don't have the time. And I said, look, when are you with your kids? When are you with them? And she said, really, it comes down to, 15 minutes in the morning. We're rushing around the kitchen, brushing our teeth. I'll walk them to the bus. And I said, okay, so make the routine when you walk them to the bus to have a conversation, even down the driveway, and do things like this. Take ordinary moments and make them extraordinary. Like, you're walking the kid to the bus. Okay, you're walking a kid to the bus. No big deal. But if you say to the kid all the way down, I want you to do something for me today. In school, I want you to think hard about 3 things and recognize 3 things during the day that you want to come home and tell me about. Something that excites you, something you learned, or something that upset you, or whatever, but 3 things, and I'll do the same.
Okay.
I said, and then when you get home, and she said, yeah, but sometimes I get home and she had someone who would feed them dinner. And I'd say, okay, but you walk in the door and you've got to suck it up and say, okay, 10 minutes. What are your 3 things? Boom, boom, boom. You want to talk more about it? We'll talk later. Let me go change my clothes, wash up, whatever. And maybe before you go to bed, when you tuck them in bed. So those little things,
Okay.
you don't have to have an hour or a half hour. My dad had that luxury in those days.
Yeah.
Wasn't as busy as it is right now, So you want to find the time to do that. Another thing my father would do is he would just smile so that his mouth reached his eyes whenever I walked in a room, or my mother walked in a room, or my sister walked in a room, which genuinely said, wow, I'm so pleased you're here with me. That takes no time. That's just a moment in time that means so much. I have some stories in the book, and what made me sad, this was going to be just a tribute to my dad.
Okay.
And my beta readers, and then some of my friends who got initial copies and read it, and then some strangers who read it because they were friends of my friends. I can't tell you how many of them said, I never had that. My parents never asked me how I felt about something. They would
And
tell me how I should feel.
Oh, Peru. I'm thinking back myself. Like, was I ever asked that? No.
Yeah.
And for people who are watching, with my audience is mostly women, but even and a lot of midlife women and senior women. But that's something that they could think about even now. If they have adult children.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I have a friend who's a physician, and he said to me after he read the book, he said, first of all, thanks a lot for making me cry. And he said, but thank you for, and he knew my dad. He knew my dad before my father passed. He said, thank you for letting me know what I've done right as a dad, but also for letting me know what I need to do better right now with my girls. And they were all almost adults at that point. He has now given them copies of the book because now they're parents, but I've had other people tell me that they're just angry that they can't meet my father because he's gone,
Yeah.
and it's like, we just never had that. My father a good example in the chapter on perspective and empathy. One of the things my father would say when I would say, oh, that teacher made me so mad, why? What did they do? I had a teacher one time in high school, and I considered him to be a little bit of a bully. He was little, and I said, he's got the Napoleon syndrome, But one time he came into the room and there was a garbage can there, and he just kicked it across the room, scared all of us. And I just thought, that's it. He's a jerk. So I went home, and my dad said, how's school today? And I said, Mr. So-and-so, I don't want to stay in there. I don't like him. Why? What did he do today? So I told him, and he said, why do you think he did that? I said, I don't know. We were quiet. We weren't talking. He didn't do it to keep. He said, look at it this way. What if all of us had ticker tapes going across our forehead that told everybody what had just happened to us before we engaged with them? He said, and what if his ticker tape said, my dog died this morning? Would you think as bad? Would you feel as bad or be as angry as you are? And I said, well, no, of course not. He goes, exactly. We can say we can walk in someone's shoes, but we don't have their baggage. We're not carrying with us what they're carrying to that path right now. So, at my dad's wake, one of the people who knew him spoke and said, he was one of the most non-judgmental men I've ever met. He
Wow.
always cut people slack and said, I mean, he wasn't a pushover by any means, but he really tried to understand that maybe there was something else going on. And I had a conversation this morning with my sister. She was all upset because her boss, was very abrupt and very hard. And, and she said, I didn't need that today. And I said, well, maybe she needed it. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, let's pretend Dad's here. What do you think Daddy would say? Daddy would say, something must have happened because that's not like her. So give her a chance to come back to you in a day or two, and something must have happened, So,
Right.
so that gift of perspective is important. And I think that's very lost in the world today. I think we
Yeah.
really need to be more inclusive. And that's what I'm hoping this book and my talking with parents, and maybe even working with families that are very busy or disconnected because they might have a child who's disruptive to the family, either because of disabilities or because of behavioral issues, or divorce causes
Yeah.
all kinds of issues, and maybe help them find pockets of where they can cement the relationships more, even
Right.
with less time. You know,
So I have a question that
sure.
came in, a text. Okay. Um, was there anything unsaid to your father that you wish you would have said to him?
Oh, that's a great question. Nothing was left unsaid, and I'm so blessed that he took the time to say, I want to apologize to you. Because if he hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been able to have the conversation to let him know, oh, no, mister, you were valuable. You gave value to everybody's life. I could see him physically relax um,
Okay.
after I said that, and smile, because he was a humble man. He didn't understand his true value, I don't think.
Mhm.
What I do regret, though, is that um, because we talked every night, yeah, and we had open conversations, but I regret not doing a couple things. I regret that my sister and I didn't take the risk, and we just felt it was too risky months before he passed away to get him on a plane and go to Hawaii, which is the one thing he really, really wanted to do.
Oh,
And we
okay.
were afraid because he was so ill that,
Yeah.
and now I wish we had done it, because I think if he had gone to Hawaii and died there, it would have been, 2 months earlier. But so yeah, but I have encouraged people when they say, "Oh, my dad's like that." Now I say, "Have you told them that?"
Right.
Because
Well, one thing, yeah, I wanted to get this in. One thing you said about the conversation with your father when he, was apologizing for not leaving you any money or anything like that. But what he did leave you, was this wisdom. Because now when a lot of people and people who I know feel that if they like you were saying, money isn't, that's not it. It's what they leave you in, the wisdom and the love, the riches that way. Because so many people think that if you spend a whole lot of money on your child, whether they are little or even teenagers or even adults, that's showing that you really care. When they
right,
want designer clothes or designer, oh well, I bought this designer whatever because they wanted it, and so now you're thinking, oh, that really shows that I really love you, but that's not it.
no, no, it isn't. And I had friends growing up in high school. They got a brand new car when they got their driver's license at 16. I'm sure they ended up with the first, kids in that economic range got, a phone. when they were 12 and 13, got an iPhone or an iPad or any of that kind of stuff. And it didn't translate to them being any happier, you know?
Yeah.
So what I like to say to parents is, you know, leave a legacy of character, not things. You know,
Ah,
that
love that.
your true legacy is who your children become. You know,
Okay.
that's
You're
your
right.
legacy because,
That's really true.
you know, yeah. So you see kids that, I mean, think about it. You're in the grocery store and you see children behaving well. I make a point of saying to parents, you're doing a great job at parenting. Your kids are so respectful of where they are, you know, so that they know that. Um, and likewise, there was, if I could do, somebody asked me if there was one thing you could change that would help families the most, what would it be? I would say, you know, yesterday I had no phone service because I'm a Verizon customer and Verizon went down on the East Coast
Yeah,
for
heard.
10 hours. I said, I would like to see the whole device thing go away for a few days and see what happens.
Unplug. Right.
My grandchildren, my two youngest grandchildren are in high school now, and our local high school, our local school district has banned cell phones. The kids can't have cell phones in school.
Wonderful.
Yes. And so they can bring them to school and then they give them to the teacher and
Yeah.
they're locked up for the day, but they're right there in the room. If there's an emergency, they can get them quickly. So I said to both of them, 14 and 18, I said, how's it going? What do you think? And I expected them to say, oh, it's ridiculous. No, you know, it's been a half year now. And they're basically saying, my 14-year-old, she said, you know what, Nani? We talk more to each other now. I'm talking to more people now. I said, really? And do you like that? Yeah. Grandparents need to model these behaviors as well. Grandparents are critical. Grandparents are the history. You know, one of the chapters is on rituals, routines, and traditions. Those are the things that ground kids and make them understand that they're part of something bigger than themselves. So they're not going to be as self-centered. They might be more inclusive of other people if we can do that. We had little, you know, again, if parents are busy, we had little traditions. One of my dad's traditions was to, when I was younger, he would come into my room after I would be in there a little while. Maybe I would read under my pillow or under my covers because I was an avid reader. And he would say, okay, we really got to get the lights off. Turn the flashlight off. I know what you're doing. And he would take the covers and pull them up to my neck, and he'd take the pillow and pull it up tight, like snug as a bug in a rug, you know. And he would do that. And sometimes, and I didn't stop him from doing that. Sometimes I didn't like it, but I didn't stop him from doing that. But that was his routine. You know, his routine when I walked into the house was to come over, put his arm around me, kiss me on the top of my head. He did that. The
Okay.
little routines like that.
Little routines. Yeah.
Right.
So
And like,
look, I wanted to tell you, Gwendolyn Dunbar says your book is a brilliant idea. Many parents are busy playing the role without the knowledge of what they really supposed to do as parents. The communication and understanding is the key. I didn't want to let that go. Yeah.
yeah, no, she's at, you know, it's absolutely true. The communication is time and presence. And by presence, you know, PRESENCE,
Yeah.
fully there, not half there, but fully there, giving them attention. You know, my father never said, not now. He would say, wait a minute, give me a minute to finish this. I'll get back to you. One time I came home from college. I had a very serious situation on my hands, and I didn't tell him I was coming. And he was under a car putting a muffler on, and I walked in, and he saw me, and he turned and he handed the tools to his helper, and he said, "Finish this up, He motioned to me to wait a minute. He went, washed his hands. He said, let's take a ride. We got in the car. We went to a parking lot somewhere, and he goes, okay, what's going on?
Okay.
You know,
Oh,
I
where do you
never,
think,
I never,
Rosemary, where do you think he got that from?
you
Because,
know, that is the $1 million question, because he had a very difficult life. He
okay.
he grew up and lost his mother when he was 12. He lost a sister at 19, one of his sisters at 19. He had a blended family, half family. His father remarried. He ended up with sisters who raised him. He lost another young sister. His brother was killed in the war. So his sisters were raising him, and they were kind and they were good, but they were very busy and not doing this. He
Uh-huh.
just was an avid observer of life. He loved it. He loved television. My husband
Okay.
gets annoyed with me because I watch TV all the time. I said, you don't understand. I watch TV for ideas to give parents and families, because that my father would, he would, like, we would watch, like, you know some of the some of the old shows that were very family oriented, and then,
Uh-huh.
like, maybe the kid would do something that was bad, that was inappropriate, and my father would love to be alive today so that he could stop the production and talk,
Okay.
because we couldn't do that. So he would say, okay, you know little Andy, um, did this. Why do you think he did that? Why did he do that? Well, he was mad. Well, why was he mad? Again, it was a learning. He
I see.
used TV as a learning tool. When the Red Skull, when Elvis Presley was gyrating on television, my mother was beside herself about it. My father was saying, close your eyes and listen to the man's voice. He's good. That's why the kids are really. And he said the same thing about the Beatles. My mother was like, look at that hair all the way down. And my father would say, listen to their music. They're really good. And he could take that apart. So we often talked about television shows and what happened. He was so not angry, but he was beside himself when Mission Impossible came out. And Mission Impossible did a show, and I'll never forget it because he and I were sitting right there in front of TV. And they showed how the guys in Mission Impossible, to get the mission done, took a suction cup and put it against a glass sliding window and cut
Oh,
out a hole and
yeah.
got in and opened the door. And my father was beside himself. He goes, they just taught kids how to break into houses. Why would they do that? And I said, I don't know. And we talked about it. So yeah, he was an observer. I think he got it all from observing, some from his sisters, Italian, Catholic, religious family. Um,
Okay.
so they were not unkind, but I think he was just a natural, or reincarnation, and he came back and he was a communicator in his past life. I don't know, but that is a great question. And
We only have a few minutes. So
okay,
I want people, number one, I want them to know how they can find you.
okay,
And one is on your Facebook page. I'm scrolling it across the lower third. So it's Coffee and Wisdom.
yes, that's
Okay.
the Facebook page for my book, that for that
Okay.
one,
So that's
and
the
I
page.
have another one from.
Okay. And then there is, if people want to get in contact with you, then there's your email, and that's so people audio only. It's Rosemary. Is it Olender or Olender?
Olender.
Okay.
It's Rosemary Olender 1. Actually,
Email.
we can give them that one. Rosemary Olender 1 at gmail.com.
.com.
Yeah.
And if they want to purchase your book, Coffee and Wisdom, That is available on Amazon.com.
Correct.
So this last question came in,
Okay.
and what character traits are required? This is a good one, by individuals who would want to do what you do.
What character traits? I think
Yeah.
you have to be I think you have to be a good critical thinker.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to really have empathy, not just fake it, but really have empathy, because you're dealing with all kinds of situations and all kinds of people. And I think you have to see helping others as a mission or a calling. I had that as a child. I organized a clothing drive in third grade for a girl in the class that had nothing,
Oh,
you know.
wow.
So
Okay.
it's like, and with my mom's help, because I went home and I was distressed about it. And her shoes, her feet were sticking out of her shoes. And my mother said, well, what could we do? And I said, well, let's just go buy her a pair of shoes. And my mother said, no, because that would make her feel like out of place. We can't just give it to her. We've got to like do a whole thing for the class, and we'll give her. And that's what we did. So we organized a clothing drive and kids could take stuff, but we made sure she got brand new shoes as
That's
part of
what,
it. You know,
Rosemary,
Yeah.
you are, what can I say about you? You have such a kind spirit and a kind soul, and the work that you're doing is so, so very important. I think we forget, the children are our future. We'll be
Absolutely.
gone
Yeah.
someday. We
If
know one
if
day we will be gone.
right, if anyone gets in touch with me using that email address, I
Okay.
will be very happy to send them a family connection questionnaire for them to assess for themselves what kinds of things are causing some issues in their family, what kinds of things they might want to work on. And I've even at the end of it said, if they want to set up a time to um, go over it or have me discuss it a little with them, we can do that too.
Okay, so that's Rosemary Olender 1 at gmail.com. Thank you
Right.
so much, Rosemary, for being my guest. You are a wealth of information and inspiration.
Thank you. I try to be. I'm hoping that this will raise a kinder, more gentler generation coming up than we're
Definitely.
dealing with right now. And it's on us.
Definitely.
It's on us to do it.
And you are exactly right. Well, thank you so much. And I want you to have a beautiful, blessed rest of your evening.
You too. Thank you so much. I enjoyed this.
Okay, definitely I did. All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, that was great. I just love her message about children, and I know I'm going to do what she said. I never thought about asking my son, well, how do you feel, about that, or just asking him questions and asking him whys. Never thought of asking that why when you get a complaint. Well, what do you think? Well, why? That's really good. That's really good. I love that. So, as I said, this is the first time I've been seeing all of you this new year. And if you weren't here in the first part of my show, this is what I want to leave with you. It's Dr. Jan's weekly relationship prescription. And the label, listen actively. What's the dosage? Take 15 minutes every day to listen without interrupting, because you know how we do. We listen to respond. We don't even let the person finish sometimes before we got something to say or we want to respond. And what are the instructions? Nod, maintain eye contact and reflect back on what you heard. What is the warning if you don't follow this prescription? Skipping doses may cause misunderstandings and distance from whoever it is that you're communicating with. So, also, I want to remind you that I will be in a roundtable panel, or on a roundtable panel for the Superhero Engine Gather Verse. It is full of, it's a 3-day, as you can see, January 20th to 22nd, and then 27th and 28th. My panel is on the 22nd. What I would love you to do is take your phone, take a picture of that QR code, and register. It is free. Free. And you will just be amazed at the different women and what they are speaking about. My panel's theme is we care, we believe, and we persist. So I want to thank all of you who came in and watched and listened, for the viewers who can see me, and also the ones who are just audible only. So I will see you again next week on Relationship Matters TV. And I want you to remember, there are all kinds of relationships and all kinds of relationship matters. Life is about relationships. If you would like to get in contact with me, all you have to do, excuse me, is to go to Relationship Matters TV at gmail.com. That is Relationship Matters TV, or you can go to Dr. Jan at drjanicefortman.com. If you know of anyone who would like to be on my show, or if you would like to be a guest on my show, and I'm talking to a certain person who's watching, I would love for you to get in contact with me. So have a beautiful, blessed morning, afternoon, or wherever you are in the world. This is Dr. Jan, and I will see you again next week on Relationship Matters TV. Bye-bye.